California adopted a green building code that goes into effect January 1 of 2011. And part of that is commercial development will now require a designated EV spot. So we've got one of those items off the checklist. 14 left. Our next speaker, I know Jim has a plane to catch, and so are there any questions for Jim before he leaves?
ADA, can you tell us about requirements for ADA parking?
Can you,
Yeah, ADA, great question.
do you want to speak over here?
If you go to the Americans with Disabilities Act, you will see information about the ratio of number of accessible parking spaces versus the number of normal parking spaces in the parking lot. What you will not find are dimensions and clearances, aisle widths, and information that you need to really design a parking space. So in the state of Washington, we developed two examples of ADA accessible parking spaces. They're both in the ordinance, but these spaces are not identified as accessible. They're not identified with the international symbol, but they are designed so that anybody with a disability could use those spaces.
Those of us who did this in the 90s, that was one of our first EV spot in a lot would always be ADA compliant, whether it was marked or not. So, yeah. Our next speaker, thank you very much, Jim. Can we have a round for Jim, please? Our next speaker is from the South Bay Council of Governments. David?
So my name is David Magarian from the South Bay Cities Council of Governments. I'm here to talk about a program that we're piloting funded by the Air Quality Management District. You've heard about it a few times already today, actually. It's the Local Use Vehicle Project. We call it the LOVE Project. Essentially, we're looking at a number of different types of vehicles, although we're really primarily piloting one type of vehicle, a neighborhood electric vehicle. There's a number of different ones on the market, and we have about 7 of them on the road. To give you a sense of why we started this project, through a SCAG-funded research proposal, we looked at the various proposals for SB 375 and how to reduce our emissions in the South Bay, and we really weren't satisfied with the primary methods that most people were using. So we started looking at different vehicle types and how they could contribute. And what we really wanted to do was look at neighborhood vehicles, things that can contribute to really putting a neighborhood focus. And that's why we chose neighborhood electric vehicles, although we do want to bring some of the full-speed electrics and medium-speed electrics into the fray and of our research in the future. Right now we have 7 neighborhood electric vehicles of different types, sizes, purposes, and we've put GPS units on board so that we're tracking their movement. They're in the hands of people in our community that we've selected as good participants. And then we're going to rotate the vehicles to new users periodically every 4 to 6 months. This way we get to see how they're actually being used in real time. With this understanding of their use, getting actual data in terms of GPS and user feedback, we're able to test range anxiety and speed requirements of vehicles that are really designed at serving mature suburbs like what we have in the South Bay of Los Angeles. So it's a 18-month project. We're about 6 months in right now. So what I'm sharing with you is our preliminary data findings. So one of our primary purposes here is really to understand what is the value of neighborhood electric vehicles or other types of electric vehicles when matched with specific purposes in terms of meeting greenhouse gas reduction criteria. what we really want to do is provide real arguments to cities and counties for why these strategies or why the tools of electric vehicles help them contribute to meeting their SB 375 goals of emissions reductions. And what we're doing with this research in the South Bay is we're targeting the second and third vehicles. We're saying replace your second and third vehicles with local use vehicles. That way we can, well, essentially there's full speed cars, which we were suggesting for the long distance primary vehicles, but we're suggesting people replace their second and third vehicles with local vehicles so that they have both full range and local options that are appropriate for their trip types. And if we replaced about half of the 175,000 second and third vehicles in the South Bay, that's sort of our target, and I'll share with you our projections based on our preliminary data. These are a few of the vehicles we have on the road, just to share with you. This is a Vantage Crew Cab. We have the Columbia Summit, the WeGo Whip, another WeGo Whip, the Gem E4. We actually have two of these as well. And our drivers right now, we have a pastor, a few soccer moms, commercial property owners, retired citizens, and we're about to get a group of church seniors to do a shared use scenario with the car, and we're about to enter into a new rotation cycle as well. And so just to get a sense of what types of data we're gathering here, we're actually looking at routes of travel so that we can actually put some hard information into some of the work that Bob Graham's doing in terms of charge port infrastructure placement. So by looking at destinations and routes of travel, we can really get some science behind where to place some of these vehicles, at least in the South Bay region. We're also looking at destination types, and you can see vaguely on this how far people are traveling. And one of the interesting things, which has been confirmed in a number of survey-based studies, is that most of our destinations are below 3 miles. So neighborhood electric vehicles are really suitable for a majority of our trips. Now, in terms of projections, if we did have 100,000 of these vehicles on the road, you can see that based on the amount of travel that we're displaying with our vehicles so far, we would see some massive implications in terms of vehicle mile travel reduction, as well as a massive amount of cold start reductions. So if you translate this into emissions, per month, 100,000 of these vehicles would reduce 6.6 thousand tons of CO2. That's roughly 80,000 tons of CO2 per year. And these are just second and third vehicles. So obviously these things have a very large impact. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Hopefully we'll have an update for you all as this program closes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Going from the future to people who have really been in the trenches for many years. Rick Sikes with the City of Santa Monica.
See if I can make this work. Should be easy to find. It's toward the end, right? Okay, well, you hear a lot about Santa Monica and a lot of the great things that they've done, and this is the reason. The residents, the city leaders, the people that work there, the staff, everybody recognizes Santa Monica has a natural resource, and that's the environment, the clean air, the beaches, and all of the things that draw the visitors there also draw the people that live there and the leaders that work there. And they've recognized this for a long time. They put together over the years a number of different things in place to keep the quality of life there and the resources that draw the income from the visitors, et cetera. And one of the big things that was done was in 1994, the city council passed the city's first sustainable city plan. And over the years, that's attributed to a lot of different types of things in the city. One of the things you've heard recently, probably in the news, is the plastic bag ban. But as a fleet manager, one of the things it's done for us is allowed us to move the fleet to be 87% alternative fueled, which couldn't have happened if we didn't have a plan and the support of everybody. So electric vehicles, that's what we're talking about mostly today, and everybody knows what they are, so I won't go into the detail on this except to explain the difference between low-speed vehicles, which are regulated by NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation Association, to be limited to 25 miles an hour, and those are also neighborhood electric vehicles when they have electric power, which is being used in the South Bay COGS Love project. A medium-speed vehicle is basically a NEV that's been rated to or sped up to go up to about 35 or 40 miles an hour. And that's been done in 9 states already in contradiction to NHTSA law. So 9 states have contradicted federal law to allow these vehicles to be more useful and to be used more frequently by more people. California is not willing to do that for liability reasons, but there is a big push out there to do that and to get the electric vehicles on the road faster. LOVE, or local use vehicles, or any vehicle that is used locally, like a NEV. It could also be a Nissan with a 100-mile limited range. It's not really that local, but it would certainly be used locally. So the electric vehicles that are out there now include medium-duty trucks like this one here that the AQMD mentioned earlier. They help fund that, and that works. The operators love it. Santa Monica is a great place to use electric vehicles because we don't need to go long distances, and this one here proves that electric vehicles work. Hybrids are anything that use 2 or more. Mostly we use gasoline electric hybrids. A plug-in hybrid extends the range of it and allows you to operate in an electric-only mode for a while. We have one, we use it at about 35 miles or less. It's all electric. When you get on the freeway, it's a regular hybrid. You can go wherever you want. You can use any fuel. I encourage any engine manufacturers or anybody else that's designing a vehicle, you can use any fuel. It doesn't have to be gasoline, so please make one with natural gas. And then, of course, hybrids are kind of an interim step for people that don't really need the range. It alleviates range anxiety. The infrastructure is out there now. We have the old stuff. You can see on the street, that's the only charger that we have in the city that's on the street in the middle there. There are a lot of issues with that. It doesn't get used that much. People complain because they can't park there if they don't have an electric vehicle. We get electric vehicles that park there that don't have the right connector. So I don't know how much street parking we're going to be going to in the future, but the new standard is definitely going to help so that we have one type of connector throughout the city that we can all use. There are a lot of issues building the infrastructure that's coming forward, and that includes the planning and building and safety, et cetera. We have a group that started within Santa Monica to put all of that together, and we're just in the infancy of it, and I hope that this collaboration here helps us find a lot of resources that we can use and plagiarize and share with the people in our city to put in some codes. The ZEV parking permit, if you don't know about that, that's a zero-emission vehicle. It allows you to park for free in Santa Monica, and I think you can still do it in LA and some other places, but it's a nice little perk. It's $17, and you don't have to pay at the meter. And that's all I've got to say right now, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions.